Somewhere in the galaxy, a rocky planet collapses, exploding into many pieces. This releases a big piece of quantonium-energized rock. This rock travels through space toward Earth. In California, a woman named Susan finishes getting ready for her wedding ceremony. She goes to the church and talks to all the guests before the wedding. Outside, she meets her fiancé Derek. He tells her they have to cancel their honeymoon in Paris because he got a job as a news anchor in Fresno County. Even though Susan is sad about not going to France, she supports Derek and congratulates him on the promotion. She asks him to wait at the altar while she finishes getting ready. Just as Derek enters the church, a mysterious bang comes from the sky. Susan notices a huge meteorite heading her way. It hits her, but she's mostly okay. She continues with the ceremony as normal. During the vows, Derek notices Susan's skin is fluorescent and greenish. Her hair turns white, and her body grows so big that she doesn't fit in the church anymore. The American army arrives quickly, trying to immobilize her. Soldiers grab her arm and shoot a big tranquilizer dart at her leg. Susan fights back, throwing the syringe at a soldier's foot. She starts feeling tired and passes out. She wakes up in a futuristic prison hours later. Confused, she gets out of bed and goes to a room with a table. While exploring, she hears voices behind a door. She tries to talk to them but gets ignored. A strange tube comes down from the ceiling, leaving gross slime on the table. Dr. Cockroach, a scientist-turned-humanoid mutant, appears. Startled, Susan grabs a spoon and hits him until he breaks. Surprised by Dr. Cockroach's existence, Susan walks back and finds Bob, a brainless one-eyed gelatin created from a modified tomato. While she talks to Bob, Missing Link, a half-man, half-fish monster, appears and introduces himself. He's been frozen for the last 20,000 years and has a bit of a womanizing personality. Once they introduce themselves, the trio asks Susan about her monster name, but they realize she doesn't have one. Before they can come up with a nickname, lunchtime arrives. They each get different meals except Susan. She starts walking backward until she accidentally bumps into Insectosaurus, a small larva that grew huge after being hit by a nuclear bomb. It's now over 120 meters tall. Missing Link comforts Insectosaurus with a belly caress. Meanwhile, Susan runs to a corner and bangs on the wall for help. Suddenly, General Warren emerges from one of the doors and orders the monsters back to their cells. Happy to finally see a human, Susan asks to leave. The general introduces the facilities, explaining that the American government established this place in the 50 seconds to hide monsters. Now that Susan is giant, she's destined to stay here for life without contact with the outside world. After a tour, General Warren takes Susan back to her cell. He mentions they've put up a kitten poster to calm her and they've given her the name Genormica. In space, an alien named Galaxar wakes up and finds out that the meteorite with quantonium has crashed on Earth. Wanting every bit of the substance, the alien version of a squid sends a robot probe to get the quantonium. It's ordered to destroy anyone who tries to stop it. Back on Earth, a couple spots a giant meteorite falling in the woods. They alert the authorities, leading the president to summon the entire American army. He goes personally to establish contact with the alien, but the probe ignores him and tries to crush him. This triggers an army reaction, even with all the American artillery. The probe remains unharmed due to its protective force field, forcing the army to retreat. After the evacuation, the American High Summit meets, and advisors discuss how to deal with the situation. General Warren interrupts the meeting and proposes using the monsters to fight the aliens. To convince them, he introduces each monster, explaining their powers and suitability for the task. Bob and Missing Link play cards, while Dr. Cockroach attempts experiments on Susan to reverse her transformation. However, a general arrives and announces a special mission, offering their freedom if they can defeat the alien robot in San Francisco. The military locates the alien probe and drops the monsters nearby. The colossal size of the enemy terrifies everyone. Panicking, Susan hyperventilates. Dr. Cockroach suggests she hides in the city while they face the robot. However, the probe crushes Bob and advances towards the city center. The robot finds Susan and scans her body, identifying the quantonium inside her. It goes into hunting mode, chasing Susan. She uses two convertibles to gain speed while going downhill. Missing Link navigates through sewers, and Dr. Cockroach rides a jet streetcar. Bob breaks free and causes a distraction, sending his colleagues into San Francisco Bay. Meanwhile, Susan skates uncontrollably onto the Golden Gate Bridge, causing a traffic accident. The probe approaches from the sea, getting caught in the bridge's cables. Susan holds back cars as they slide towards the water. With the probe occupied, Dr. Cockroach enters the alien robot's mouth and disrupts its central system. This leaves the Insectosaurus paralyzed due to a scanner malfunction. Prioritizing civilian lives, Susan asks Bob to remove retaining walls, allowing cars to turn around on the bridge and ensuring people's safety. Genormica makes a final effort, pulling the steel cable in the probe's hands, causing it to lose balance and fall off the bridge. Due to its colossal weight, the Golden Gate structure sags, and a main beam breaks, falling onto the robot, splitting it in half and shutting it down. Galaxar, in another part of the universe, sees his plan fail. He decides to personally come to Earth, plotting a direct route to our galaxy to retrieve the Quantonium. After the battle, the monsters are taken to Genormica's house. She introduces her new friends to her family, but their lack of socialization with humans for decades makes the encounter awkward. Things settle down, but Susan realizes Derek didn't attend the celebration. She goes after him, leaving her friends with her family. However, this decision backfires as Dr. Cockroach almost causes a disaster with the humans. Derek is broadcasting when Susan arrives, picking him up and shaking him. He admits he's not ready for this and can't put his career aside. Their engagement ends, leaving Susan feeling sad. She wanders until she reaches a gas station, contemplating life. The group catches up to her, discussing being monsters and her relationship with Derek. During this conversation, Susan realizes her delusions. Suddenly, Galaxar abducts her. Insectosaurus tries to hold her back with silk, but Galaxar fires an energy sphere, knocking out the monster. Susan is imprisoned by Galaxar, who explains the Quantonium while taking her to an extraction chamber. Halfway through, Susan breaks through the force field and chases Galaxar, causing havoc. In the main hall, Genormica knocks down the alien but gets captured by an extraction chamber. The procedure to remove the Quantonium begins, and Susan slowly loses strength, shrinking back to her normal size, becoming defenseless against Galaxar. Now that he has achieved his goal, the alien octopus intends to rebuild his civilization on Earth. He initiates the cloning process, creating an army of energy-charged alien clones. Galaxar, now with thousands of copies, begins a global broadcast, announcing the invasion and threatening those who oppose it. In a final effort, General Warren reunites with the monsters, equipping them with jetpacks. The trio flies towards Susan, while Warren and his pilot stay behind to distract the alien cannons. Upon noticing the general, the spaceship's AI fires an energy sphere, hitting the jet's back and causing a system crash. Warren ends up atop Insectosaurus, who is in a cocoon. Bob infiltrates the spaceship, finding Susan, who's being taken to the incinerator. He disguises himself as Galaxar to rescue her, but the clone sees Bob as a defective version. The clone orders Bob and Dr. Cockroach to the incinerator. Seizing an opportunity, Dr. Cockroach takes the clone's badge and gun, shooting the clone and allowing them to escape. Dr. Cockroach triggers the ship's self-destruct. Bob realizes they need to reach the central core above the extraction chamber. Dr. Cockroach removes an object from the slime's hands, causing an accidental shot that alerts other clones of their presence. The final battle between monsters and aliens ensues. The clones, strangely not using weapons, are knocked out by Ello and Bob. Susan joins the fight, firing a gun, but the recoil sends her flying toward the ship's center. Dr. Cockroach advances through walls, and Bob devours aliens along the way. They end up trapped in the extraction chamber, and the blue slime throws them into the central energy core. As soon as the invaders are detected, the aircraft's AI encrypts the system with a color code. Dr. Cockroach easily disables the security system and inputs the self-destruct sequence with 6 minutes left. However, Galaxar orders the AI to concentrate Quantonium near his escape pod as a backup plan. With 5 minutes left, Missing Link takes a vehicle from a clone but overturns it due to their combined weight. Only Susan passes through the main gate with her friends trapped inside. She steals floating skates, ending up at the robot probe station, which attacks her. She evades the blows and flies outside the spacecraft. Facing Galaxar's energy cannon, Susan dodges a hit and kicks a skate through the spaceship's windshield, hitting Galaxar. Susan climbs onto Galaxar's escape pod to stop him from taking the Quantonium. She knocks him down, grapples with him, and takes his futuristic pistol. Galaxar claims she can't open the gates due to the program's self-destruct. Susan disagrees, firing at the Quantonium above, which falls over her. She transforms into Genormica, reaches the main hall, and saves her friends from debris. They jump out of the ship, and Warren arrives riding a giant moth bug. With seconds left, they fly away as Galaxar's spaceship explodes. Earth is safe, and the monsters return to the city, gaining recognition from humans. Derek appears, forgiving Susan and asking for an exclusive interview. Susan rejects it, playfully trapping Derek and Bob. General Warren congratulates them and informs them of a new mission involving a slug in a French nuclear reactor. They head to Paris to stop the giant escargot. Excited, they ride the winged Godzilla to Europe, flying over the horizon to their next adventure. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more interesting movies.